Confession: I, F18, have lived alone for 3 years in my own apartment. It might sound freedom-filled to many, especially those still grappling with curfews and the chaos of family life, but my solitude was woven from threads of loneliness, longing, and something else darker that I hadn't expected. When I signed the lease as a naive 16-year-old, I thought living alone would be a thrilling adventure brimming with newfound independence, but that initial excitement quickly morphed into an unforeseen isolation. My friends drifted away, busy with their own lives, and when I wrapped myself in the silence of my one bedroom, I started feeling like a ghost who haunted her own home. It began innocently enough, the occasional creak of the floorboards in the dead of night, tiny movements out of the corner of my eye that I brushed off as the remnants of a mundane day, when shadows appeared to grow longer. Yet my mind couldn't help but fill those gaps with questions. Was someone else in my apartment? Had I inadvertently invited a paranormal entity into my life through my self-imposed isolation? Just last week, as I curled on my couch with a blanket and a half-empty cup of cold tea, I caught a glimpse of somebody, small and fleeting, scutter behind my bookcase. I froze, my heart racing, and reason told me that it was just a trick of the light, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the confines of my apartment held more than my simple belongings and scattered hopes. Curiosity grew into obsession as I spent my days searching through online forums and haunted house documentaries, tearing apart my sanity in the pursuit of understanding what lurked just beyond perception. Conversations with friends now consisted of nervous laughter and vague references to weird things in my apartment, as I tried not to show them how deeply unsettling the idea of my living situation had become. Then came the night I finally mustered enough courage to confront what I believed hid within my walls. Armed with a flashlight, I stood in the dim glow of my living room, my heartbeats echoing louder than any noise of the night. I ventured towards the bookcase, muttering to myself that ghosts were absurd, merely figments of an overactive imagination, and carefully, I tilted the furniture enough to peer behind it. My breath hitched as I saw not a ghost but a collection of items: a small, tattered teddy bear, a threadbare blanket, and crumpled pieces of paper covered in scribbles. They were dated, each note a fragment from someone's life squeezed into the space I had thought was solely mine. The notes told a story of sorrow, of someone who had lived there before me, trapped in an unbearable life, and after reading them, I felt a burgeoning empathy for the spirit that once inhabited my home. I realized that my isolation had echoed theirs, a continuous void that gnawed at the edges of happiness. As the days turned into weeks, I began writing letters to that person, sharing my fears, my dreams, and my confessions, about loneliness, about resilience, about wanting to reclaim the space where darkness had once settled. In those late-night scribbles, I started to feel a shift within myself. The burden I had carried began to lift as I bared my soul to the whispers that haunted my hallways. One letter brought an unexpected sense of closure. I realized I could take control of my own narrative instead of allowing the narratives of others, those who had left pieces of themselves behind, to dictate my life. I chose to embrace the solitude, to restore joy within the echo of silence rather than fear it. I decided that it was time to breathe new life into my apartment. Colors replaced the chipped walls, plants breathed verdancy into the once stark corners, and each adjustment felt like a step away from the ghosts of my past, toward a future filled with light. As for the lingering remnants of whoever had come before me, I left their notes nestled in a box with the teddy bear, placing it on a shelf I reserved for cherished memories, reminding myself that our pains often intertwine but do not define us. For the first time in years, my home truly felt like mine. I am no longer living alone, I am discovering myself, and perhaps that was the most profound resolution of all. I know that others may have struggled in similar spaces, so I want to share this tiny epiphany with them. Loneliness can spark fear, but it can also ignite a journey of self-compassion and understanding. Update: a couple of weeks after writing those letters, I woke up to the doorbell ringing persistently. I opened it to find a delivery driver with a package that bore my name. Inside was an unassuming frame, holding my favorite note from that box. Someone had found it and sent it with a sweet card that simply read, "You matter." It might have been a complete coincidence, but in that moment, I felt a sense of connection to the world that I never thought possible in my solitary apartment. I smiled, acknowledging the spectral whispers but no longer captive to them, allowing instead the gentle reminder of belonging to guide me, my once lonely refuge transformed into a sanctuary. This simple act of kindness sparked something deep within me, a flicker of warmth I hadn't felt in years. It was as if the universe was gently nudging me to acknowledge that this solitary life I had carved out wasn't just an existence filled with shadows, but a story filled with possibilities, marked by the serendipity that brought that note back to me at just the right time. Instead of wallowing in my solitude, I found myself daydreaming, imagining connections, friendships, maybe even a sense of community. The thought of meeting someone new didn't seem so daunting anymore. After all, had I not just received a message from a stranger that resonated deeply with my heart? The next day, I ventured out, a little timidly, but with a sort of hopeful determination that was new for me. I stepped into the small cafe down the street from my apartment, the Nook. It was cozy, with the faint aroma of coffee and pastries wafting through the air, wrapping around me like a warm hug. I ordered a chai latte and found myself a corner seat, where I could observe the life bustling around me. I watched people laughing together, sharing stories or moments of quiet companionship, and it reinvigorated a sense of excitement within me. I was struck by the realization that each of them had a story, just like mine, full of struggles and small victories, sheltered within their laughter and chatter. I picked up my journal and began to write, letting the words flow freely from my head to the page. I poured everything into that small notebook, my silly fears, hopes, and musings about life, weaving the fabric of my lonely nights into something vibrant, a tapestry of my solitude transformed. As I left the cafe that day, I felt lighter, a swift breeze danced around me, as if it too was whispering encouragement. Days turned into weeks, and I started making this a routine. My infrequent visits to the cafe blossomed into warm exchanges with the barista, Jennifer, who always remembered my order and threw in an extra pastry on slow days. Then there was Michael, an artist who frequented my corner table, sketching the patrons, and who eventually joined me one afternoon, sharing snippets of his artistic journey while I shared pieces of mine. Each interaction chipped away at the walls I had built around myself, and slowly, I began to see my apartment less like a fortress and more like a resting place, a canvas to dream on, instead of hiding within. I meticulously filled my space with mementos from an enriching life, photos of us laughing at quirky art shows, postcards from old friends, and even framed snippets of conversations that struck a chord. I still had the spectral whispers, but instead of haunting me, they enveloped me in a comforting embrace, an acknowledgement that I was not alone in my experiences anymore. I was a part of something greater, a beautiful life tangled with shared stories, laughter, and creativity. It was one evening, under the soft glow of warm string lights on my balcony, that an unexpected message lit up my phone. It was from the same anonymous number I had received the note from all those weeks ago. My heart raced as I read, "Hi. Where can I send another little something? It felt good to connect, and I would love to remind you again that you matter." My breath caught in my throat, that same warmth rushing back through me, not quite believing the world could be this kind. We exchanged a few messages that evening, the conversation so genuine and easy, as if we had known each other forever despite that initial anonymity. And just like that, a new friendship emerged, filled with laughter and support, reminding me that sometimes, amidst the fog of loneliness, it takes just one little connection to illuminate the path back to oneself. The specters of my past still visited, but now, they merely served to enhance the pieces of life I was reclaiming, quiet reminders of where I had been, which now felt like distant echoes against the symphony of laughter and companionship I was cultivating. I closed my eyes that evening, the cool breeze lightly rustling the leaves, and I smiled softly to myself, feeling a profound sense of belonging within my heart. And even though I had embraced solitude in the past, I was learning to dance a delicate waltz between presence and absence, discovering beauty in both the quiet times alone and the raucous laughter shared. A few weeks later, I received another note, this time not anonymous but signed, Kara, who turned out to be the mysterious sender who had ignited this journey of self-discovery. And though I still cherished my moments of solitude, I had finally learned that reaching out for connection wouldn't drown out my independent spirit but rather complement it. As the seasons shifted outside my window, so too did my perspective, as I rested comfortably in this place I now called home, my sanctuary, filled with the echoes of laughter, art, and an unshakable sense of belonging, a reminder that amidst the chaos of life, we always have the choice to nurture both solitude and companionship, creating a tapestry that is uniquely ours, interwoven with every meaningful connection we dare to make. With the arrival of that unexpected package, a seed had been planted deep within me, urging me to extend my hand beyond the boundaries of my cherished solitude. It was a kind of quiet revolution that felt secure, as if the walls of my apartment had started to lean in a little closer, helping me embrace the world outside. Days turned into weeks, and as the last vestiges of winter surrendered to the warmth of spring, I found myself living harmoniously with my new mindset. The park nearby, once a neglected thought, became an inviting breath of fresh air where I would occasionally